Howdy gang, it is the warm-up for the week of May 11th here. So we're going to start off with something familiar. We're going with the teacups. We'll go 5 each direction. I want you to hold your hands out, palms up. Imagine like you have cups of tea you're balancing on some teacups. And we're just going to go underneath your arms, around, and over your head. So these kind of just create little figure eights, all the while trying not to let the tea spill. Embrace arching and rounding with your spine to facilitate this. And if you really want to see if you're achieving the goal, put your phone or something important in your hand and go for it. You'll be highly incentivized not to drop it. All right, let's try the other direction. So this time we'll go out, behind, over, and around. Okay, arms are going to go straight out in front, and we're going to imagine that we're wringing out a towel here. So I'm going to turn my thumb in on one arm, turn my thumb out on the other. So I'm internally rotating and externally rotating, kind of going opposite here. So we're just going to rotate back and forth, try and get your palm to go through a full 360 degrees of motion so it's facing up in 2 different orientations. We're going to try to utilize this kind of asymmetrical back and forth nature here in just a second. Really rotate into it as far as you can each way. Whew. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to do the teacups again, but this time they're going to be a little bit out of sync. So instead of having them go kind of next to each other, mirroring what's going to happen, we're going to take one of the hands at the halfway point and one of them at the normal starting point, and we're going to go for the teacups. So you can achieve this by starting one hand. We're just going to go out, around, and over is about halfway. Start the other hand where you normally would. We're going to try to get some asynchronized teacups going. The rhythm is a little bit more difficult, but I think it's physically less demanding because you can actually start to lean to one side and allow your palm to turn over just a little bit easier. But just a fun way to take a familiar task and maybe throw a little coordination twist on it. Still trying your best not to let the tea spill. Okay, now we're going to go the other direction. So last time we went out to start with. Let's go ahead and get the first hand set by going underneath the arm, up overhead. So we're about to go back over my head. Put the other guy next to me. And a good way, a rule of thumb to know which way to go is both hands will go the same direction. So in this case, they're both going to go back behind me. So we're going to try the same idea, go in the other direction. Take it nice and slow. The arms should remain slightly bent the entire time. Whew. Okay, another kind of familiar move with a slight twist, literally. So we're just gonna let the arms start to swing side to side, like we've done before, similar to the boneless dance. Some of you in the afternoon may be familiar with. But this time we're going to look over your leading shoulder. So whatever direction I'm twisting, I want to look further and further. As it feels good, you can add a little bit more aggressive twist to it. Should send you a little bit further around. But just trying to relax the arms. Just get a little bit of rotation through your trunk. down. I wouldn't abruptly stop just so you don't get dizzy. And we're here. All right, next, we're gonna do some rounding and some arching, just 5 times here. So I'll show you from the side, I think it's a little bit easier. I want you to take a stance with your feet a little bit wider, maybe than a squat. You're going to round your spine, and get as low as you can, and then we're going to arch. Round, and arch. Maybe you try and touch closer to the floor or even further between your legs, and then you try and spot something a little bit further behind you. Whew, feels good. Next up, we're going to get into a Samson stretch. So what that is a deep kind of lunge position with a real emphasis on a straight back leg and an upright torso. So I'm going to start with my left leg forward. I'm going to bend into that front knee, keeping the shin pretty vertical, but you can allow the knee to come forward. And we're going to keep your back leg fighting to go straight. It's going to be difficult to achieve depending on your hip flexors flexibility here. But we're going to get into this position and just hold it up overhead. If you start to lean in the direction of whatever leg is forward, so in my case right now, my left leg is forward. If I lean to the left, I'm going to get a little bit more opening. You'll feel this pretty heavily in through your hip flexor. Slowly come on out of it. We'll switch sides. So kick the leg back, start to sink down into it, bending that front knee. And if you're game for it, bring your hand up overhead. Or both hands up overhead. Remember, we're going to lean in the direction of whatever leg is forward. Nice. Come on out of that. Let's go ahead and drop down into a squat. We're going to bounce. About 30 seconds of bouncing. And then each direction, I want you to get 10 of these knee pushes. So trying your best to remain flat-footed. You're just going to push your knee as far out to the side as you can, 10 times. Last off, we're going to get into a downward dog position. So pushing my hips up toward the ceiling, push my chest and sternum back towards my knees here. If your feet come up off the ground or if your knees are bent, that's fine. But all we're trying to do is get to the kind of end range of motion of this overhead position. You should feel this in your mid to upper back. And one way I like to think of this is kind of like tucking my tailbone down toward my heels. And we're just going to bounce. So I'm right at the end range of motion. I'm focusing on keeping my arms straight, my tailbone kind of tucked down. We're going for about 30 seconds. And hold it. Get 5 big breaths. Every time you exhale, try and push further into it. Okay, hopefully we're warm, ready to attack the day.